Hello, I'm Naya. I am doing a Magicka Nightblade build for the Wrathstone patch. Game has seen a couple different changes in which playing Magicka Nightblade has at the same time somehow become more favorable and less favorable. In part due to the fact that Magicka Nightblade has just really been sucking outside of dueling, and even in dueling it's not as good as it used to be. And it has had a lot of its identity stripped away, though it does remain the edgy Magicka user. It's always been, so I decided to go back to a previous build style that I used to do, and was known for being weird for. My favorite ability in the game, Refreshing Path, has been absolutely destroyed and turned into a healing only ability instead of healing and damage. The reason it was nerfed is because it was an overloaded ability, yet for some reason we still have overloaded abilities like Spin to Win in the game, so I feel like that argument isn't very good, though it is sound and legitimate. We're gonna want to camp path. This is your life here. This is gonna keep you alive. It also keeps you quick. It helps you get around, and it's a nice way to get our shadow barrier passive up. It gives us our major resistance buffs. So this character actually is not built to be a Magicka character, so he is missing a few passives. Isn't wearing all the correct gear, but he does have the two main sets on. The only gear he's missing is the monster set, so he's pretty close to accurate. This is one of the reasons I want to have a shadow ability that I can use frequently. I would have just done Mass Hysteria and then not even bothered with Path, but because of this ability, if we don't have two shadow abilities on each bar, we're going to have an uneven amount of health. That's not good, because that means we can bar swap into a Sork Execute, which sucks. But thank God, after almost 2 years of saying it, they removed the requirement on Ancient Knowledge to have a skill slotted. My build used to be very weird, and it was something like this. I had crippling on the back bar. This is back when keyboard was a good thing. So yeah, those days are gone. I have noticed that on a Khajiit it is harder to sustain. It is still completely possible, especially if you do a few more heavy attacks, but as much as I do enjoy Khajiit, it's not something I wholly recommend. So right now I'm actually using Spinners and Shacklebreaker, but the traditional build, which I have been suggesting to everyone, is Innate Axiom and Bright Throat. So on Bright Throat I have this protective here. That's important. Bright Throat is a mixture of a damage and a sustain set. It's just like it's basically Magicka Bone Pirate. So we have Bright Throat and Innate Axiom, right? Awesome. So on a Khajiit, getting a little bit of stam recovery from your racial passives, which is why I'm not wearing Shacklebreaker. However, on a Breton, you would need to have a stamina recovery enchantment, something like that, make up for the lack of stamina sustain. So yeah, that's that. Spinners is a nice damage set that you can have on your front bar as well. Overall, you're either going to be using Spinners or you're going to be using Innate Axiom. And that is because on our back bar we have Black Rose Prison. Both Spinners and Innate Axiom don't matter much when we're on our back bar. As if we had Julianos and we swapped to our back bar, then we'd actually be losing something, because when we use this, it's not going to heal as much because Julianos is going to buff the amount of healing it does. So I wanted to go with something that would offer more power to my damage and any abilities I used on my front bar, rather than that missed opportunity. So that is why I'm using spinners or innate axiom. Right throw is just a nice damage sustain set, 2-in-1. Shacklebreaker also does the job, but you're going to be getting more Magicka sustain out of Bright Throat. You would also want to use Balrog. I'm using Grofdar just because I don't have Balrog on this character. Grofdar is a lot of fun though, and it's it got fixed finally after like 2 years. This cannot be blocked like it always should have been. So that's nice. I also feel like the aesthetic of Balrog when it gets procced looks really good on a Magicka Nightblade. Just with all your magic and your buffs, just it fits really well. That edgelord vibe going. Yeah. So you're probably going to want to have a Nirnhund weapon here. I have defending right now just because that was what was cheap and available. So I have Nirnhund on my innate axiom staff. You can use sharpen too. If you're going to use spinners though, I suggest you use Nirnhund. If you're going to do innate axiom, then you could do sharpened. And then on your back bar, you're going to want to have a Black Rose restoration staff, defending or decisive. You do not want powered. In fact, in most cases, Nirnhund is better than powered. Not all cases, but in most cases, Nirnhund is better than powered. So yeah, that's a thing. Decisive will allow you to have more ultimates though, which is always a good thing. Perfected is, of course, opportune, but not 100% necessary. You're going to want a Berserker enchantment on this bar, and then a Absorb Magicka or Oblivion damage enchantment on the front bar, which is something I'm currently lacking. If you have an issue with stamina recovery and breaking free and all that, you can put a single stamina recovery glyph on your jewelry, but if you're using Shacklebreaker, you should not be having that problem. For a Khajiit, you should not be having that problem, though there are other good races to use. Now, let's go over the skills. So, I've already gone over the gear. This is not the opportune gear. Merciless Resolve, this is our bread and butter burst skill. Just seen a few buffs, a few nerfs here and there, but overall it is still the core part of the class that has always been. Swallow Soul, this is our spammable. It heals us over time and on impact, sorta, quote-unquote impact. Shade, this is a essential skill to our kit, as it's a mobility skill, but at the same time, the debuff it inflicts on your opponent is very much so a necessity, as it reduces all of their damage by 15% for 4 seconds. And since Shade is going to be consistently hitting that target, that target is just going to be perma-maimed for 20.7 seconds. The damage is also kind of noticeable on the Magicka Nightblade if you have a high amount of max magic, and pets did get buffed, so it's going to be, it's going to be critting more often, etc., etc. It's not super powerful though, so don't expect to be getting a lot of killing blows with Shade, because that doesn't happen very often. And if it does, it's a rarity, and it's something everyone likes to laugh at. But yeah, always keep that ability up. Do it not only for your escape, but so that you also have that debuff. Fear will also put that debuff on them, but it doesn't have it for the same uptime. Honestly, I don't understand why you get Maim from Fear. The snare on Fear is really enough. Not necessary. So Fear, this is our stun. Normally you'd use Flame Clench. I'm using Fear. It is definitely the better CC. Goes through block. It hits 2 targets. It used to hit 3. I don't know why it doesn't hit 3 when Streak can hit fucking 6 people. I don't know. So yeah, and then we have Crippling Grasp. This is our primary damage dealing dot ability. It also has a nice snare, a expedition buff, and it also immobilizes your opponent on impact for 1.5 seconds, and it lasts 8 seconds, which ain't too bad. Yeah, this is a pretty essential skill right here. Then we have our bread and butter ultimate Soul Harvest. A lot of damage, nice debuffs, and if we kill something, someone, literally if we get the killing blow on something, we get 10 ult. That's all it is. It's not that helpful in PvP, but it's nice. So on our back bar, I want to just make sure this is known. Tether, you can't hit anyone. It is really hard to hit people with Tether. I have stood on top of people, used Tether, and not hit them. It's a great skill, but it just doesn't work a lot of the time. It's kind of sad because it's a great skill and it looks cool and you feel so good and powerful when you use it, like here. Like just boom, and it stuns everyone and it's cool and it does damage, but it's not. It really isn't. The healing is nice though, but in a 1v1 it's not that great. So you will want to be using Resto ult here. Yeah. Anyways, Shadowy Disguise. This is Cloak. This is Cloak. Moving on. Path. I've already mentioned before, this is our way of getting Expedition when we don't have a target to cripple. Just stand in this and for 2 seconds we get Expedition, although I don't know why they haven't like raised that to 4 like they have with everything else. It's just kind of weird to me. And then also put Cripple on an opponent and then we get Expedition for about 4 seconds. It's actually a nerf because it used to be more, which kind of sucks. There's Groftar. Visually one of my favorite sets. So, but Path will give us that Expedition all the time, so if we're trying to get from A to point B really quickly, we can just lay that path down, even if there's no one for us to hit. Get that other Expedition. Then we have Ward Ally, because we're basically forced to use this now. This is Black Rose Resto. Healing Ward is fucking garbage now. It literally, there's no reason to ever use Ward. Ever. It's just not worth it at all. Ward Ally is severely superior. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to hit Ward and then Blessing of Restoration. You could just do 1 if you want that quick heal, but after hitting the Ward, you will get a significant buff to your Blessing. By 30%. So yeah, that's a lot of healing. That's a lot of. And now, mind you, the healing, that 30% boost applies to everything. So if I just so happen to have one of my Swallow Souls tick, I'm going to be getting a really big tick from that. That's actually not going to be that big. It's going to be like 2k at the highest, which isn't a lot. And this is also going to be higher. It's going to be maybe 2.5k. Maybe. It's not that impressive. But if you want to heal for anything, you're going to need to use a Black Rose Resto. Otherwise, you're just going to have to be something like a class with a burst heal. Yeah. Magblades and Max Arcs are kind of screwed there, although we have more passive healing, thank God. Siphoning attacks over here, we have a nice sustained ability, as well as a ability that heals us. That's basically it. It is no longer the best sustainability in the game. It is one of the best sustainabilities in the game, though, but it is no longer the best. And then we would have Resto ult. Now, one of the reasons we want to have Resto ult and Balrog is because after we use Resto ult, we are more or less prepared to go on the offensive. And so if we have a lot of ultimates stored up, we're going to be able to just turn around and bumfuck people, because that is a lot of damage that we get from storing up that ultimate. And then Resto ult. And Resto ult will also give you a 30% increase to your crit damage, as well as healing and major protection. So you could just turn around and pop like 3 people. It is a lot of damage. And it's also going to help your healing too. So Balrog, good set. No reason to not use it unless you just don't have it. If you don't have it, you have a few options. You can use Grafdar if you feel like getting up in people's faces. And this is a build that requires you to get in people's face, because you have Path to assist getting in their face. You have Fear. Fear is fear. That is your stun. So to use your stun, you need to get in people's face. But you have also abilities that help get you into people's faces. It would be nice if we had snare removal attached to Path or something like that. Would be great. But we don't. So yeah, that's that. Gone over all of that. You're going to want to have 2 triglyphs on your chest and on your legs or on your helmet. I have one on my helmet right now. Because this robe is new, I haven't enchanted it differently yet. You're going to want to have everything be in pen. You don't want to not be wearing in pen. If you have 1 or 2 parts, something else, that's fine. Just transmute it as quickly as you can. You're going to want to put as many points into Magicka as you can. I get really OCD-ish about my max health on Magicka builds. I tend to put just like 4 points into health. But typically you want to put them all into Magicka. We go skills, vampire or werewolf. There is no point. There's just no point. I know you get the extra regen. Undeath is a nice passive. The crouching around is nice, but quite frankly, there's just so much fire damage around. One-shot Dawnbreakers, and you look ugly. I know you can put skins on, but it's like, nah. Miss me with that. That's fine. There is no, you should not use vampire unless you need mist form. Otherwise, there is no reason to use vampire unless you're just there for the RP or the aesthetics, because mist form is the only reason you would ever want to use vampire. And I don't like mist form. So moving on, we're gonna look at our CP. So here I have 53 into Warlord for breaking free, 10 into Sprinter just to kind of facilitate our sprinting because we're a Magicka build. I have 45 into Mooncalf because we're going to need that stamina sustain regardless of what's going on. And then we're going to have 75 into Arcanist because that is our primary resource, so we want to have most of our recovery into there. 53 into Tumbling. We're going to be doing a lot of rolling around. Even though we're a Magicka build, it's how life is. 27 into Shadow Ward. You're going to want to do more blocking than rolling, but sometimes rolling is necessary. And then we have 10 into Befoul because after we use Soul Harvest, this will help prevent your opponent from recovering after you use Soul Harvest on them. It helps secure your kill. Moving on, I have 19 into Blessed to facilitate our healing because healing is hard right now. I have 66 into Elfborn, 56 into Elemental Expert, 20 into Spell Erosion just for some extra pen. Although with the Light Armor passives, we do get a fair amount of pen. 66 into Master at Arms, just the magic. This is standard on basically everything I've ever done. Always put 66 into Master at Arms. And then I put 9 into Staff Expert because we are using staves. 43 into Thaumaturge because damage over time abilities exist, and I also do a lot of PvE on this character, and I don't care to change my CP, so having a couple into Thaumaturge never hurts. It also makes our crippling grasp more of a I'm gonna kill you type of threat rather than just a bit of a tickle. Ironclad, I put 66 into Ironclad to prevent me from getting bursted, as opposed to the 52 I have in Thick-Skinned, while not getting fucked by damage over time is really helpful a lot of the time, especially in light armor. What's going to kill you is burst damage, just unexpected large amounts of damage, so Ironclad is where I put a lot of my CP. I have 47 into Resistant for that juicy crit resistance, 37 into Elemental and Hardy, or Elemental Defender and Hardy. You can go up to 43 if you have the CP for it, but you probably won't because of this here. On stamina builds, I tend to put 11 into Quick Recovery, but on a Magicka build, I put 31 into Bastion, because Healing Ward is literally the... Ward Ally, RIP Healing Ward, is the only thing between us and death a lot of the time, so making that bigger is really helpful. I would just put it at 30, or, you know, you could make this more, but I don't see much of a reason to. But I put it at 31 because that's the jump point, and we get this one here. When you resurrect another player, you increase their magic recovery by 773 for 8 seconds, which is... But the main reason I even put points into this tree is this one right here. While you're resurrecting another player, your damage taken is reduced by 15%. It's pretty helpful. Resurrecting is a very important thing, so, you know, having points in this tree is kind of nice. Also, Bastion is kind of important, so yeah. Moving on, I have a lower CP, or not a low CP setup, but CP points that you want to fill up ASAP. Although if you're a lower CP, should probably not be in CP PvP, just because you're gonna have a hard time. And it's not gonna be the most fun for you either. As for races, Breton is gonna have the best sustain. The damage will be pretty good, but there's no huge amount of there's no huge amount of damage there. You'll need one stam regen glyph on your jewelry if you want to go with the Breton, though, just so you can sustain your stamina. If you use Shacklebreaker, then you won't, but with the build you typically would want to be using Spinners or Innate with Bright Throat. So yeah. Argonian is going to have some good sustain via the potion passive. It's going to have good healing, not as much as it used to have. It's actually balanced now, yippee-ki-yay. You might need another source of stam regen, but if you play your cards right and you're smart about things, you might be okay. Khajiit, it's got a little bit of everything. It's not super great, it's not super shit. You're gonna notice Magicka sustain issues, although my stamina sustain thus far has been pretty good. And then another thing which I haven't experimented with that much, but I did try it on PTS, is High Elf. You get the damage of Dunmer, and then you get stamina back every time you use a class ability, or like every 4 seconds, give or take. So that's basically that is your stam sustain. You don't have to worry about a stam sustain set. So that is more of a PvP passive, but it does have its benefits in PvE as well, and it's also doing a lot of damage. Moving on to potions and food, we're just using our good old PvE spell power potions. This right here, I do have tripods on me because I have used them in no CP, but you need to put entropy on your bar to do that because you need some source of sorcery, and so going to be lacking a fair amount of crit. Don't have prophecy, and since we don't have inner light, that, and then we have our Magicka sustain. So yeah, basically fuck it, PvE spell power potions is the way to go. And then for food, As always, you're going to want to have Witchmare's Potent Brew, or the gold version of this, which comes from Silencing Torm, if I remember correctly. I don't remember what it's called. It's like Clockwork Citrus Fillet, I think. And money for that. Well, I probably do, I just don't care. It's expensive and I really don't want to deal with that shit. So yeah, that's a thing. You can use escapist poisons if you want to use poisons, but I don't see the necessity for that, so don't worry about that. Passives, you're going to want any passive that involves combat. Actually, I wouldn't even worry about the Mage's Guild passives unless you're actually going to be using this, so don't worry about it. Okay, right, tips and tricks. So reapply siphoning even if you're not in combat, because if you're just walking around and cloaking around and paying attention to the enemy, you're going to be burning through your magic. And yeah, you can always just chug potions, but having that 4k sustain is pretty helpful. So, you know, every 20 seconds having that 4k Magicka come back when you're cloaking around is pretty helpful, and it will honestly surprise you how much more cloaking you can do if you keep that up. Always keep Shade active, not just so you can escape tricky situations, but for debuff as well. Make sure you use Fear every 6 to 8 seconds if you're in a 1v1, sometimes more often if you're facing multiple people. That's how CC immunity works. Always try and combo stuns with Soul Harvest or Merciless. Fight in your path. Sometimes you're not going to have a lot of Magicka, and path is kind of expensive, I know, but fight in your path as best as you can. Run through it, etc., etc. Just try and have that on you, because the more healing you have on you, the less likely you're gonna die. Yeah. The Defile on Soul Harvest and Incap will prevent your enemy from recovering. So after you use a Soul Harvest or Incap, you're kinda gonna want to commit to some extent. Feel free to just not commit, but if you do and you don't follow through, you just wasted your ultimate, and it'll come back pretty quickly. But like, there's no reason to just, especially with Balrog, since it gives you more damage or you stack up your ultimate, there's no point in just blowing it for no reason. Always, some people will just immediately dodge roll after they get hit by that ultimate, and so if you try and fire Merciless right after that, there's no point. Honestly, Merciless is kind of fucking annoying because anyone who's competent won't get hit by it. It's hard to do sometimes. Blessing of Protection is now our defensive spammable. Remember when I used to call Healing Ward your defensive spammable? Now it's Blessing of Protection. Although typically you want to do Healing Ward, or sorry, Ward Ally, and then Blessing of Protection. But you can just hit Blessing twice in a row if you just want to be quick and get it over with. Blessing of Protection can miss you. It's fucking annoying. You'll be annoyed. Be upset. It can miss you. I'm not 100% sure how to prevent that, because I have like hit it and then dodge rolled into it, or dodge rolled to the side of it, and it misses me. It's weird, and there's a delay on it. I don't remember. It's like 0.17 or 1.17 seconds was the delay. It was kind of stupid. Yeah. In our CP, we put a lot of points into tumbling just because dodge rolling is something I have to do. Dodge roll canceling, dodge rolling out of roots, dodge rolling and then jumping to get away. Snares, you know, because after you dodge and then jump, you keep some of your momentum. So that just kind of helps you get away from snares. Drink potions on cooldown, as that gives you ultimate Yeah, your Nightblade passive, siphoning tree, 20 ultimate every time you drink a potion. And I know for some people who are more strained on money, that is not necessarily something you want to hear me say, but hey, it's good for you. A potion a day keeps the death away. Yeah. You can also just carry your own trash pots and you can drink those randomly. Feel like it, but I chug spell power potions like there's no tomorrow when I'm playing a Magblade. So yeah, that's the thing. Inevitably, a lot of newer players will crutch on cloak. I've more than once had someone come in and say, well, I'm going to be basically invincible because I got this. You are not invincible where you were cloaked. In fact, a lot of the time, fighting anyone who has half a brain cell, cloak will not do anything. Cloak is a tool, not a crutch. And if you use it as a crutch, you deserve to die. If you use it as a tool, good job. Use it as a crutch, I hope they kill you, because it's not a crutch. You can crutch on it sometimes. Admittedly, I've relied on it a little too much in the past, so like when I go to play a Stamplar, it feels a little weird not have cloak, but it is not a crutch. And the sooner you learn that, the better you'll be at the class. Also think of it as a bit of Magicka dodge roll, because it will force a miss on stuff, so if you don't have the stamina to actually dodge or don't want to deal with the timing of it, you can hit this if you can. But if you do, every time you cloak, keep in mind you're giving your enemy time to recover and collect themselves. So you don't want to be cloaked for too long. So just cloak to miss that ability, maybe move in closer so you can use Soul Harvest here, but frankly, you don't want to be spamming cloak. Yeah. That's it. So this build will be on Dots Gaming's website. I'll have a link in the description below. You can ask me questions about it on my Twitch channel, on Discord, on Dots Gaming's Discord, even in the ESO fam Discord, though that one's more of a general community resource. And you can also message me in game. Here's my @name. Feel free to whisper me in game or send me mail. So, I don't know, like just using Discord would be easier. You can also message me on Twitter. I'm a resource, I'm an educator. Feel free to ask me any questions. Remember, there are no stupid questions, only stupid people. Love you all. Be nice to each other, be safe, and have a good night.